Suge Knight is notoriously known for fearing no one, while everyone fears him.
They was not scared of Suge Knight. They was terrified of Suge Knight.
Every time he pulled up to a club, people froze.
Suge Knight too.
You met him?
Yeah, no, Suge Knight used to be like with me and shit, pulling up to the clubs and shit. Yeah, all that shit.
And the water's part for him probably, huh?
Huh?
People don't play with him, huh?
Like, what you mean?
I mean, I feel like it would be, when he shows up, people get real serious probably around him. Like people
Like
are
you
scared.
saying, like scared?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Suge got a lot of motherfuckers scared, for sure.
However, there was one incident where one man, Slim Shady, aka Eminem, gave Suge Knight a taste of his own medicine and freaked him out.
Eminem, I don't think it's a rapper he won't slay, and you don't even want a war with Eminem. You know, he crazy.
We're back in the early 2000s, and Eminem's friend, 50 Cent, is about to take over the Billboard charts with his new song, In the Club.
Go, shorty, it's your birthday.
But there was still one thing missing, the music video. Filming kicked off, and right there to support him was Eminem. But he wasn't the only one who showed up. Suge Knight pulled up. He didn't just roll through to intimidate M and the G-Unit crew, he came with real muscle, Mexican gangsters.
So Suge came, he had some Mexican niggas. Now we from New York. You ain't never seen a nigga with a tattoo on his forehead.
So there was this time Suge Knight tried to intimidate Eminem and the G-Unit crew with Mexican gangsters. But he found out that Eminem is not someone you mess with. According to Tony Yayo, M stood his ground against Suge Knight on the set of 50 Cent's In the Club music video.
So Eminem, 50, everybody outside, nigga light the cigar. I was bugging because I seen, this is when I knew Eminem was real. He's like, I don't give a fuck, man.
While this happened a while back, it became a sensation because of one of Suge Knight's latest interviews from prison. Here, Suge Knight spoke about that night he ran into Eminem, and according to him, there was no way Eminem would have checked him.
So for is Eminem checking me, that's a laughing matter, you know. I mean, it's ridiculous.
In his words, he wouldn't have had to lay a hand on M himself, he'd just have someone Eminem's size handle the job.
I'm definitely too big to slap the shit out of you. If that's something he really want to get it, I'm quite sure I could find a little homie in his class can run it, you know.
And while that might be true, witnesses from that night paint a different picture. They say Eminem didn't care what happened to him. He was ready for whatever. As the story goes, 50 Cent was filming the In the Club video when, out of nowhere, someone shouted, "Suge's outside." That single sentence was enough to send the whole set into chaos.
He came, it was like, Suge's outside, Suge's outside. Everybody like, he was running, dropping shit, like, man, everybody going, I'm in front of the camera like this.
Suge didn't roll up alone either. He pulled up deep, with around 30 men, reportedly members of a Mexican gang.
So Suge came, he had some Mexican niggas. Now we from New York. You ain't never seen a nigga with a tattoo on his forehead. 118th Street crew. I'm like, what the fuck? Nigga got a tattoo on his face, homie.
Amidst this tension, Eminem was also present at the video shoot, and according to witnesses, he stood his ground and wasn't fazed at all.
This is when I knew Eminem was real. He's like, I don't give a man. This is when I knew, I'm like, damn, Eminem is a real nigga. These niggas, 50 niggas outside, what's up?
Now, the beef between Eminem and Suge doesn't get talked about as much as you'd expect, but it's one of those stories that reveals just how wild the music scene was back then. As we all know, Suge Knight is no ordinary guy. His reputation speaks for himself. Intimidating, ruthless, and a straight-up bully.
Suge Knight is a mythical figure.
The controversial CEO of Death Row Records, the most feared figure in all of hip-hop.
His size was intimidating.
Knight had been on probation for a 1992 assault on 2 aspiring rappers.
But Eminem wasn't most people, and he had something just as powerful, Slim Shady. That alter ego of his was a whole different animal. Slim Shady was reckless, dark, violent, and unpredictable, a pill-popping, controversy-loving menace who bowed to no one. Eminem introduced Slim Shady to the world in 1999 with a Slim Shady LP, specifically through his breakout single, My Name Is.
Hi, my name is what? My name is what? My name is Slim Shady.
Then in 2000, he doubled with the real Slim Shady from the Marshall Mathers LP. By that point, Slim Shady had evolved into something even bigger, an alter ego who had tasted fame and wasn't afraid to burn bridges. In the real Slim Shady, he made it clear he wasn't going anywhere. The song starts with, "Y'all act like you never seen a white person before," which was his way of firing back at the industry that couldn't seem to look past his race.
Y'all act like you never seen a white person before. Jaws all on the floor like Pam, like Tommy just bursting it.
And then there were the celebrities who felt the wrath of Slim Shady. Will Smith caught a stray in one of the most memorable lines. "Will Smith don't got a cuss in his raps to sell records, well I do, so F him and F you too."
Please stand up. Will Smith don't got a cuss in his raps to sell records. Well I do, so f him and you too.
That line was a direct response to Will Smith's 1999 MTV VMAs acceptance speech, where he made a comment about winning awards without cursing or rapping about violence. Then there was Christina Aguilera. She had mentioned in interviews that she thought Eminem was cute, but later on, while talking on MTV, she made a comment about his personal life, specifically about how he was married to the woman he rapped about killing in his songs.
I heard he's married now. Eminem? Yeah, totally. The girl that he talks about killing on his record, actually.
And I was like, no, you didn't just say that, you little bitch.
Never one to let a slight go unanswered, so he threw her into the fire along with Carson Daly and Fred Durst, rapping about how they were arguing over who she gave H to first.
Christina Aguilera better switch me chairs so I can sit next to Carson Daly and Fred Durst.
So by the time Suge Knight tried to intimidate him, Eminem had already been through the ringer with the industry. Another incident between Eminem and Suge Knight went down at the 2001 Source Awards. Eminem was there performing with his group D12, and like any major awards show, the vibe was already tense. Normally, artists could have their bodyguards nearby at these events, but for some reason, the rules that night required bodyguards to sit separately from the artists. That left M in a vulnerable spot, which Suge and his crew didn't hesitate to exploit.
The way they had it set up, the bodyguards could not sit with their artists. You had to stand off to the side.
According to Eminem's former bodyguard, Big Nas, things got sketchy fast. M ended up surrounded by a group of intimidating guys wearing red shirts, a clear signal they were affiliated with the Bloods, the gang Suge Knight was known to have ties to.
And M was cut off on his way to his seat, and all these guys in red shirts surrounded him. And I'm looking at M's face, and I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, shit.
Big Nas quickly realized something was off and sprinted across the venue to get to Eminem. He said it was obvious these guys were sent by Suge.
You see all these guys talking about death row, motherfucker, death row. Death row, motherfucker, death row. So by this time, I cut in, I step in front of M, I push the guys back. I'm like, yo, what the fuck going on here, man?
Things between Suge Knight and Eminem escalated to a whole new level during a crazy incident in Hawaii. According to Eminem's former bodyguard, Big Nas, there was some serious intel that Suge had plans to harm Eminem during an event that was supposed to be nothing more than a casual getaway. But this wasn't just some vague, low-key threat. Apparently, Suge sent more than 50 of his guys all the way from Los Angeles to Hawaii. Their goal was to disrupt what should have been a relaxed gathering with Eminem, Snoop Dogg, and Dr. Dre. What was supposed to be a peaceful vacation turned into anything but. The entire vibe flipped the moment they touched down. Instead of sunbathing and sipping cocktails, the group found themselves on high alert, bracing for a possible confrontation. Everyone involved, Eminem, Snoop, Dre, and their wives, had to gear up like they were heading into battle. Bulletproof vests became part of their daily wardrobe, and firearms were kept close by just in case. The situation was so tense that even the Honolulu Police Department had to get involved, assigning officers to shadow Eminem and the rest of the crew for protection. Big Nas later opened up about just how surreal the experience was. "We thought it was going to be a vacation," he said, "but it turned into a huge problem. We had our wives with us, some people even brought their kids. The second we got off the plane, it was chaos. Honolulu police had to escort us, and we were rushed to a transport van with everyone, kids, wives, and all."
We ended up getting escorted by Honolulu police, man, and so we had to gather up our kids, our wives, and had to be rushed to the transport van, the shuttle van.
But aside from his alter ego, Eminem had another form of protection that a lot of people don't know about: the Samoan gangs. Back in 2003, Eminem teamed up with a legendary Booyah tribe on their single 911. But this wasn't just your average rap collab, it had way more layers to it. For those who might not know, the Booyah Tribe wasn't just a hip-hop group, they were deeply tied to the Samoan gangs of Los Angeles.
Y'all got some gangster shit coming this Saturday, man.
What? Regulating.
And if you're familiar with gang culture, you'd know the Sons of Samoa are no joke. They might come across as chill and easygoing, but when provoked, they're known to snap and the consequences can be deadly.
Did you catch this? 100% Samoan. Lift up the shirt, bro. Lift up your shirt. Lift up your shirt. Show your tap. Look at that. Samoan.
Back in 2020, Booyah Tribe's nephew, Monsta Ganja, revealed that back in the day, his uncles weren't just rappers. They were also working as security for Eminem.
And didn't they do security for Eminem a little bit when M used to come out to the West Coast? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Turns out Slim Shady was being extorted by the Los Angeles Crips. This kind of extortion even has a name, checking in. Essentially, when a rapper or celebrity travels to a city, especially one with a heavy gang presence like Los Angeles, they're often expected to check in with a local gangster street boss. And if you refuse, there are usually consequences, and not the kind you'd want to deal with.
You better check in, nigga. Imagine, nigga, ain't say I'm gangster, nigga. Crip. Straight up, nigga. Crip, nigga. Straight up, nigga. Crip, nigga. Fuck Suge, nigga.
But the Booyah Tribe came through for Eminem. They stepped in, protected him, and in return, got a feature on that track.
So Eminem was getting extorted by some Crips.
Meaning that they're saying you can't come out here unless you pay us or...
Yeah.
So it's highly likely that if Suge Knight had ever laid a hand on Eminem, he would have faced serious consequences. Thanks to Eminem's connection to the Samoan gang, a group even Suge was known to tread carefully around.
I was like, what's up? Suge Knight scared of you. Suge Knight scared of you. I don't give a fuck. And then everyone I talked to, they go, man, is Suge really this, really that? I was like,
But
I'm Samoan, man. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. You King Kong, you Godzilla, you gonna get your ass beat.
And Suge Knight definitely had a good reason to be cautious of the Samoans. As mentioned earlier, these guys weren't playing around. They were known for being one of the most serious and dangerous gangs out there. The gang, known as Sons of Samoa, or SOS, got its start back in the mid-1980s in Long Beach, California. Over time, though, their reach expanded way beyond that. By the 1990s, they had to spread to Hawaii across various parts of California, including key areas in the Bay Area like San Jose, Oakland, and Hayward. Incidentally, these were the same cities where members of the Samoan family lived, which only added to their deep connections and influence in the region. The police in Washington state had a lot to say about the SOS gang and their reputation. They were well known for using intimidation tactics to get what they wanted. Extortion was also a common move, and they weren't shy about pulling off drug rip-offs or even committing homicide when things escalated.
What kind of weapons do the gangs use? Your gang, for example.
38, 22, 357, 9, AK.
It's pretty heavy sort of artillery.
Yeah.
These guys weren't the type to back down from a fight either. They'd throw hands with just about any gang that crossed their path. Their most common rivals, though, were the Tongan Crips gangsters, which only added to the tension on the streets. When it came to their image, the SOS gang used a few specific symbols to represent themselves. One of their most recognizable signs was the Seattle Mariners logo, which they'd use on hats or clothing. They also had unique hand signals to show affiliation. These weren't just for show, these symbols carried weight, especially in gang-heavy areas where every sign and symbol sent a message. According to Long Beach detective Norm Sorensen, who spoke to the Los Angeles Times in 1990, the Sons of Samoa had a reputation for being an incredibly tough group, especially when they had been drinking or were under the influence of drugs. Sorensen explained that their tolerance for conflict was basically non-existent. If someone so much as looked at them the wrong way, a fight was almost guaranteed to break out. He described them as the type of gang that would fight at the drop of a hat, and their unpredictability made them even more dangerous. Their violent reputation wasn't just talk either. Stories about the SOS gang's willingness to fight and use violence spread quickly, earning them a lot of respect and fear on the streets. Whether it was intimidation, enforcing their dominance, or straight-up brawling with rival gangs, SOS had a no-nonsense approach to handling business. They made sure everyone knew they weren't a group to mess with.
Did you catch this? 100%. Samoan. Lift up the shirt, bro. Lift up your shirt. Lift up your shirt. Show your tat. Look at that. Samoan.
One thing that made the Sons of Samoa gang stand out was how different they were from other gangs in certain ways. Unlike most gangs, they didn't operate completely outside of traditional society. There wasn't any formal initiation process like the brutal hazing or jumping in rituals that are common in a lot of gangs. Joining SOS was more organic. Samoans came together out of necessity, driven by the need to protect themselves and each other in communities where they were a small minority. To put things into perspective, back in 2000, the entire Samoan population in Oakland was just 614 people. That's only about 0.15% of the city's population. It's no wonder they felt the need to stick together when they were such a tiny community compared to others. A friend of the Samoan family once described the gangs in court records, saying it had a heavy presence in areas like San Jose and even in Samoan churches. It was in these churches that members of SOS would talk about values like respecting others, especially elders, a big part of Samoan culture. But outside of church, it was a whole different story. The same guys who were preaching respect and community inside those walls would show a much darker side when they were out in the streets.
I won't hesitate to shoot anyone.
You won't?
No, I wouldn't hesitate to shoot anyone if they come and mess with me.
Interestingly, despite how bad SOS could be at times, not everyone saw them purely as a criminal gang. For some, especially other Samoans in the area, SOS was more like a social club that brought the community together. It wasn't just about crime, it was about fostering a sense of ethnic brotherhood and looking out for one another in a world where they felt outnumbered and overlooked. For many, it was less about being a gang in the traditional sense and more about having each other's backs in a hostile environment. In the Bay Area, the Sons of Samoa operated a little differently compared to many other gangs, especially when it came to the infamous color wars that defined so much of gang life in places like Los Angeles during the 1990s. While the Bloods and Crips were going at it full force in LA, SOS in the Bay didn't seem to take those rivalries as seriously. They weren't as focused on the traditional red versus blue battles that defined so many street wars. Instead, their focus was more about their own alliances, survival, and controlling their territory. But that doesn't mean they were dangerous. In fact, their willingness to adapt and align with other groups when it suited them made them even more unpredictable. For example, federal prosecutors in San Jose revealed that a subset of SOS operating out of Monterey, California, had formed an alliance with a local Norteño crew called the Murder Squad. Together, these groups weren't just causing trouble, they were escalating things to a deadly level. In 2017, SOS and the Murder Squad reportedly teamed up to target rival Sureño members. They weren't just making threats or getting into small scuffles, they were actively working together to take out their enemies. In one case, they collaborated on a planned murder of rival Sureños, showing just how tight their alliance had become. They even carried out drive-by shootings, with reports detailing how they fired multiple shots from a revolver into a Hayward home where Sureño members were staying. And it wasn't just about guns and shootings. SOS had no problem resorting to more old-school methods of intimidation and robbery. They were known to walk right up to someone, deliver a knockout punch, often referred to as the one-hitter quitter, and they stripped the victim of their valuables right there on the spot. Jackets, wallets, shoes, whatever they wanted, they took. The people they targeted would often wake up dazed, beaten, and completely robbed, all while SOS walked away unbothered. One of the most chilling incidents involving the Sons of Samoa gang was the tragic murder of 25-year-old Nolan Pamintuan, a young man who was on the brink of one of the happiest days of his life. On May 17, 1996, Nolan was preparing for his wedding to his fiancée, Rowena Pineo, which was set to take place the very next day in Daly City near San Francisco. He had planned everything down to the last detail, taking an active role in organizing the big day. That evening, after spending time at his parents' house in Hayward, he had a list of errands to run for the following morning: booking a hotel room for after the wedding, picking up tuxedos for himself and his groomsmen, and helping his Aunt Edith with wedding preparations. But instead of waking up to a day of joy and celebration, Nolan became the victim of an unspeakable nightmare. That night, as he stepped out of his car in Hayward, he caught the attention of a group of men driving by in a stolen van. Timing in this case was everything. If Nolan had just been 2 minutes faster or slower, he might have avoided their notice altogether. But as fate would have it, the men saw him, targeted him on the spot, and decided to rob him. At gunpoint, Nolan was kidnapped, forced into their van, and driven around the Bay Area while his captors stripped him of all his possessions. As if that wasn't terrifying enough, the situation took an even darker turn. The men began arguing among themselves about who would kill Nolan. Despite Nolan's desperate pleas for his life, their decision was merciless. He was shot once in the chest with a sawed-off shotgun and left to die in the middle of a street in Hayward. His lifeless body was discovered shortly after midnight on what was supposed to be his wedding day. The news of Nolan's death sent shockwaves through the community, devastating his friends, family, and especially his fiancée Rowena. She was informed of his murder just half an hour before the wedding was scheduled to begin, turning what should have been the happiest day of their lives into a day of unimaginable grief. What made the crime even more senseless was how sloppy the perpetrators were. They left clues everywhere, holding on to easily identifiable stolen items, keeping clothing splattered with Nolan's blood, and making no real effort to cover their tracks. Detectives had no trouble piecing the case together, and within 10 days, 4 suspects were arrested. The group included 2 juveniles, an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old man who was believed to be the shooter. As it turned out, 3 of them were members of the Sons of Samoa gang. During the trial, 2 of the suspects cooperated with authorities, turning informants in exchange for 16-year prison sentences. The other 2, including the suspected shooter, were convicted and remain locked up to this day.